शलाकया उन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितां च तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितां च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद। अच्छा, जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। So what did Anu say?
He's coming.
All right. So let's. Here is a synopsis of chapter 8, 7. Somebody, audio is on. Somebody's audio is on. If you can switch it off, please. Okay, so chapter 8. Is about attaining the Supreme. Based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, Swami Srila Prabhupada. We've already done Mangalacharan. Okay, so in chapter 6, we discussed who is the best yogi. Krishna explains there are different kinds of yogas. And then when Arjuna asks him, so which is the best one? He says, well, the best is Bhakti Yoga. One who serves and thinks of Krishna. That kind of yoga is the best. This was the summary of chapter 6. From that, the conversation moved on to how to attain such constant remembrance. Because in 6, he said, if you constantly think of me, you will be relieved of your confusion and of the miserable state of mind that you are in right now. And so naturally, the logical question that Arjuna asked after that was, so how do I achieve this? How do I attain such constant remembrance? So throughout chapter 7, that's what Krishna explained to him. You know, that there are 6 ways of doing this. First, you gain knowledge. Once you gain knowledge, you become free from doubt. Once you become free from doubt and your faith becomes firm, then you want to take shelter in the parampara, in a bona fide parampara, in a bona fide guru. And once you have taken shelter, then you start practicing the yoga process under the guidance of the guru and the previous acharyas. So the bhakti yoga process starts. And once the process starts, your mind then, the asthir mind, the monkey mind starts becoming stabilized, starts getting anchored. And the soul who truly knows Krishna finally is able to attain his constant remembrance just by following this process. But such a soul is very rare because it requires utsah, nishchayat, dhairya. So you may have utsah, but you may not have the determination. Or if you have utsaha and determination, you may not have patience, dhairya. You need all three. And such a person is rare. And then Sutre Manigana Eva, Krishna explains to him how to understand how the universe is resting on him. Is simply, he gives a very good example of pearls on a string. That you can see the entire universe working in perfect order, but there is an underlying thread that is holding them all together. And that's me, he says. And then he also says that indirectly you can experience me. I'm the taste of water. I'm the fragrance of earth. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent. I'm remembrance. And so on, he explains. And then he says that he is gunatit. He controls sattva, rajo, tamo. They don't control him. And then in chapter 7, we also did the 4 kinds of people who will surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. Who are they? The dukhi atmas, the distressed. Sabse pehle to wo aayenge. Then second, those who want a lot of money, they are not satisfied with the wealth they have. So in search of money, they will come to surrender to the feet of a saint. Third will be the inquisitive ones who want to know what exactly is going on in this universe. How is it operating? And then finally, the best types seekers are those who are actually seeking knowledge. They're searching out real knowledge, the Gyanis. Who is the best? So the 4th kind of person is the ideal candidate. I mean, he will grasp the juice quickly. And yet there will be 4 kinds of people who will never surrender. Who are they? The grossly foolish, mudha, the lowest among mankind. What was the word given?
Naradham.
Adhama, excellent. Then the 3rd type, knowledge, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion.
Maya aparahata.
Sorry?
Maya aparhrita.
Maya apahrita. And then last is the atheists.
Asuram bhava.
Asuram, excellent. So all 4 together. Mudha,
Mudaha, Naradhamaha, Maya aparhrita, and Asura.
Asura. These 4 kinds of people will never surrender. And then those who do surrender, उनकी भी categories हैं. अधिकांश लोग देवी देवताओं के पास जाएंगे. So those who surrender to Devi Devtas go to their planets. Those who surrender to Krishna goes to his planet. तो सबकी destination एक नहीं है, अलग-अलग है, because these are different boats, destinations are different. And then the impersonalists will never understand the supreme nature of Krishna as one who knows the past, present, and future. To such foolish people, Krishna never becomes manifest. And then chapter 7 concluded in how deluded living entity can become free. The freedom can come through knowledge, through knowing Krishna. Those who take shelter of Krishna, they know him as Adi Bhuta. And then Adi Daiva and Adi Yajja. These were the 3 words that were done. So the last verse of chapter 7, Krishna uses these 3 words. Adi Bhut, Adi Daiva, Adi Yajja. So now in chapter 7, Arjun is going to ask Krishna a series of 8 questions. Ek ke baad ek, rapid fire questions. And Krishna is going to answer them. Also, rapid fire answers, quickly, one after the other. So chapter 8, what Arjun is going to ask him is, what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adi Bhut? What is Adi Daiv? What is Adi Yajja? Then where does an Adi Yajja reside? And how to remember Krishna at death. He wants to know what is the gati of a devotee, of a Krishna conscious person. And Lord Krishna answers these questions. So the focus of chapter 8 is the importance of remembering Krishna at the time of death. And bhakti, pure devotional service, what does that entail? Then there is a comparison between the material and spiritual world, and the glories and the supremacy of the spiritual world over the material world is established. And finally, the supremacy of bhakti, of devotion, as the ideal process to adopt to reach Krishna. So this is what chapter 8 is all about. Okay. So verses 1 to 4. These are the 8 questions that he asks that you can see on the screen, and the 8 answers that Krishna gives. So let's start. Okay. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam. Vaishali?
Kim tat brahma kim adhyatmam.
Sorry. Arjun uvacha.
Arjun uvacha.
Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim karma purushottama.
Kim karma purushottama.
Adi bhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adi daivam kim uchyate.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
I mean, just,
Arjuna inquired.
Yeah.
Pardon? Arjuna
Yeah.
inquired, "O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me."
oh, rapid fire. So many questions in one. Because his curiosity is thoroughly aroused. He's a perfect candidate of a yogi who is asking out of knowledge, who wants to gain knowledge, not for any other reason. Okay. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjun, beginning with what is Brahman? The Lord also explains what's karma, devotional service and yoga principles, and finally, bhakti, devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the supreme truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, the 3 facets of Krishna. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. So Arjun also inquires about Atma, which refers to the body, soul, and mind. According to Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to mind, soul, body, and senses also. So that's the beauty of Sanskrit language. It's so scientific. One word can take 4 or 5 different meanings depending on the composition of the word. So from the Shabdkosh dictionary, according to that, the word Atma can sometimes mean mind, at other times it can mean soul, sometimes it can mean the body, and it can also mean the senses. Okay? And Arjun has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottam. Purushome Uttam, matlab supreme person. Which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to a supreme person, knowing him to be the supreme authority, able to give definitive answers. We have established this from chapter 1, that both Krishna and Arjun will address each other by different names, according to the mood, according to the message that their feelings that they are trying to express. So here, by calling him Purushottam, Arjun is very clearly saying, I completely accept and understand that you are the Supreme Lord. You are the Supreme Person. So I'm asking you this question because you are the Supreme Person and you will know the answer, not as a friend. Now I'm asking you this question as a disciple. Therefore, he's calling him Purushottam. Okay. So next. आप बोलोगे नेहा? Adhiyagya katham kotra
Adhiyagya katham totra
dehe asmin madhusudana
dehismin madhusudana
prayana kale cha katham
prayan kale cha katham
jneyosi niyatatmabhihi.
janayosi niya atmabhi. Who is the Lord of sacrifices and how does he live in the body? O Madhusudana, and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?
There, the last question. Also he wants to know कि जो भक्त हैं उनकी मृत्यु उनकी गति कैसे होती है? How do they behave at the time of death? And how, what again, he's addressing him as Madhusudan. Madhusudan means the way you destroyed the demon Madhu, who denotes doubt. Please destroy this doubt, this confusion in my mind, O Madhusudan, and deliver me from this confusion. So, the Lord of sacrifice may refer to either Indra or Vishnu, क्योंकि सारी दुनिया इंद्र की भी पूजा करती है, खुद नंदगांव के ही लोग कर रहे थे, because everything, life depends on rain, and Indra is the devata of rain. So definitely everybody has to offer their oblations to Indra. So Lord of sacrifice can refer to either of them. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, which means he is the chief of Brahma and Shiva. Of the Tridev, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Vishnu is the chief. And Indra is the chief of administrative demigods. जैसे ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश में विष्णु चीफ है, उसी तरह सभी देवी देवताओं में इंद्र चीफ है. Hence, Lord of sacrifice could either mean this or that, depending on the context of discussion. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by Yajna, correct? But here Arjun asks, who is actually the Lord of Yajna? And how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity? Arjun addresses the Lord as Madhusudan because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjun, because Arjun is a Krishna conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. So Krishna is so expert in killing demons that Arjun is addressing him as Madhusudan, so that he is inviting Krishna, come, kill these doubts in my mind. Now the word Parayan Kale is very significant. Prabhupada points out to the word Prayan Kale, because whatever we do in life is tested at the time of death. So you really can't cheat. Or if you are cheating, आप बहुत घाटे में रहोगे. क्योंकि if supposing you know that your exam is next month, and if you start making a show of study, just to tell your mother or to family members, I'm preparing, or जैसे, but actually you're not preparing, सबसे बड़ा loss किसको होने वाला है? Exam तो आप ही नहीं देना है, parents तो जाएंगे नहीं. So if you're going to waste your time, or if you're going to cheat through preparation for the exam, it will be revealed at the time of the question paper, correct? Similarly, if you do not do your bhakti well, then all that cheating will be exposed at the time of death. There is no way you can escape. Okay. So Arjun is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted, mind is not in a proper condition. Thus, disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember Krishna. This was the doubt of Maharaj Kulshekhar also, who was a great devotee of Krishna. And he prays, Maharaj Kulshekhar prays, my dear Lord, just now I'm very healthy. मतलब उनकी prayer थी, इस समय मैं स्वस्थ हूँ. Just see the devotee's heart. इस समय मैं स्वस्थ हूँ, मुझे इसी समय ले लो. Please give me death, because I'm healthy right now. I can remember you. So it's better that I die immediately so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet. Devotees naturally become poetic, you know. So for him, attaining Krishna's feet is more important than life itself or enjoying life. So this metaphor is used because the swan, which is a bird of water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. They're always pecking into the lotus flowers. This sporting proclivity is to enter into the lotus flower. So Maharaj Kulshekhar is saying, now my mind is undisturbed, I'm healthy. If I die immediately thinking of your lotus feet, I'm sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I don't know what's going to happen to me. Because at that time, my bodily functions will be disrupted, my throat will be choked. I don't know whether I'll be able to chant your name. So better that you please let me die immediately. And Arjun questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such a time. So let's go to so Krishna here. Now he gives rapid fire. Arjun has asked first 2 verses. He has asked him 8 questions. And now it's time for Krishna to reply. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Yes.
Aksharam Brahma Paramam.
Svabhavo Adhyatma Muchyate.
Svabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate.
Sorry. Svabhavo Adhyatmama Uchyate.
Svabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate.
Bhuta Bhavodbhava Karo.
Bhuta Bhavodbhava Karo.
Visargaha Karma Sanyitaha.
Visargaha Karma Sangyataha. So the translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities.
Okay, so he has already replied to the first 6 questions. His first question was, let me show you the slide. Uske saath, it will be easy for you to understand this verse. Yeah. What is Brahman? Arjuna asks. Krishna says Brahman is the indestructible living entity. You, he says, you are Brahman. Next question. Who is Adhyatma? The presiding deity of the body? Is the living entity's nature. Your Swabhav is your Adhyatma. What is karma? Karma is the reactions that force the living entity to take a material body in the world. And then 4th question is, what is Adhibhut? Adhibhut is the ever-changing material nature. That which is changing, that which cannot remain constant. Next, who is Adi Daiva? He who presides over all the demigods and their planets is the Adi Devata. And who's that? Krishna is saying, that's me, the universal form of the Lord. And finally, 6 and 7 question, who is Adi Yagya, the Lord of the sacrifices? So he's saying, is Krishna the Adi Yagya, or is it the Devatas, the demigods? Where, whoever he is, does he preside? So Krishna as the super soul is within everyone's heart, and he is the Adi Yagya, the Lord of all exercise, the Lord of all sacrifices. So who is Adi Yagya? It's Krishna, not the demigods. And where does he preside? In the Hridaya Kshetra, the heart, in the heart of everyone. Okay. So, a Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. So Brahman refers to Jiva and Para-Brahman refers to Krishna. The constitutional position of the Jiva is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter, but in spiritual consciousness, his position is to serve the Lord. So, constitutional position, मतलब जीव की जो actual position है, वो इस दुनिया में आकर बदल जाती है या जीव खुद इसे बदल देता है. स्वभाव कुछ और लेकर आया होता है, लेकिन यहाँ आकर वो भूल जाता है. स्वभाव क्या लेके आया होता है? जीवेर स्वरूप होए नित्य कृष्ण दास. कृष्ण का दास है, ऐसे ही वो आता है, लेकिन यहाँ आके भूल जाता है and he becomes the Swami. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies. This is called karma. क्योंकि उसने consciousness, जब सेवक की consciousness छोड़ दी और स्वामी की कैप पहन ली, तो जो भी वो काम करेगा, that's going to be called karma, and he is going to get reactions for that. Even if it is something as simple as eating and drinking, if he is doing it with the mentality of a swami, of a bhokta, he is going to get reaction even for the simple actions or karma of eating, drinking, and sleeping, which the human body has to do to survive. So consciousness is so important, isn't it? Because these are the things that you will anyways have to do. But if you're doing it as a swami, you're getting reactions. If you're doing it as a sevak or as a das, no reactions. Big difference. Big difference. So this is karma. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Para-Brahman. The Jivatma takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter. Sometimes he identifies himself with superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy, Tatastha. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or a spiritual body. In material nature, he will take 84 lakh species of life. That's the variety here. But in spiritual nature, he is given only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as man, sometimes as devata, sometimes as an animal, beast, bird, according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs yajna. But when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. Clear? So it's actually an endless cycle, endless vicious cycle. Why would you even want to be that? Imagine a chakki going around and you are waiting to take your, and that chakki is constantly moving and you are waiting to enter. Which fool will want to enter that chakki? Because once you enter, you have to keep on going round and round. You can't come out of it. Whether you're feeling dizzy, whether you are vomiting, whether you want to come, you can't. Then you have to keep on going round and round and round. So the sane person will not enter only, no, that wheel. Or at least once he has entered, he will try to get out of it. कि मुझे नहीं, क्योंकि चक्की तो चलती ही रहेगी, उसका तो काम ही है ये. So the sane man, first of all, will not enter. But if he has entered through his karma, then he should be in a haste and hurry to get out of it, isn't it? Because what fun is there? Or what are you going to expect? You're not going to get any results. It's just going to go round and round. Birth, death. Karma, birth, karma, death. Karma, birth, karma, death. Who would want, which sane person wants to do this? Not for one birth, two birth, millenniums after millenniums. Okay, the Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, five kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of heavenly, planets, clouds, earth, man, and woman. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process, there's a very beautiful PPT to help you understand this. Very beautiful. I'm going to show it to you now. You will be surprised. I'm sure you may have read so much of science and biology, but you have not learned this biology before, the way Krishna has explained it. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets, and consequently he reaches them. But when the merit is exhausted, the living entity descends again to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains. Here, let me show it to you. How babies are made. Does anyone know how babies are made? Well, you think you know, but you don't. I didn't. So, okay. So these are the 8 questions. Quickly read them at your own pace. We just did them. And the black are the questions asked by Arjun. The red are the answers supplied by Krishna. Atma can have any of these 4 meanings according to the Nirukti Sanskrit dictionary. Brahman could have these 2 meanings. Next slide. King Kulshekhar's prayers, we just did. He's asking Krishna, please take me right now only. And finally, Lord Krishna answers the 7 questions of Arjun. What is Brahman? Difference between material and spiritual consciousness. Why the living entity is called marginal? Because sometimes he becomes material energy का सगा भाई, sometimes he becomes spiritual energy का सगा भाई. इसलिए उसको जीव को borderline बोलते हैं, because he has the option to go material or spiritual, left or right. Therefore, he is called Tatastha, border, a marginal entity. Material or spiritual consciousness में क्या फर्क है? Material means I am the Lord. Spiritual means I am the servant. Clear cut. There is no long definition to this. What is Brahman? Living entity and the Lord, both are Brahman. They are same in quality, but the Lord is Para Brahman, the supreme Brahman. What is the result of the living entity identifying with matter? 84 के चक्कर में वो पड़ जाता है. As a marginal entity, if he leans towards materialism, then he is in that chakki of 84 lakhs. And what is a Krishna conscious viewpoint? Avoid such sacrifices and take direct Krishna consciousness to come out of it. He refutes impersonalism. Brahman takes the form of the jiva in the material world. The living entity is an eternal, fragmental part and parcel of myself. And finally, the purport discusses Vedic sacrificial process. Okay, here. This is the, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So these are the actions that result in a material body. Here, this is the Vedic process. Here, can you see my cursor moving?
Yes, yes.
So we were all here. This is the spiritual world. Okay. Just a minute, I'll open it. Yeah. So we were all in the spiritual world, and because we identified with materialism more than spiritualism, why did we get a human body from the spiritual body? So 5 kinds of offerings. Panchagni Vidya. Here you can see these rishis and munis. They were doing the yagya, Panchagni Vidya, the materialistic yagya to attain to heavenly planets. Those are their faith was in the Brahman aspect. So with that faith, they were doing their sacrificial ceremonies. Because of that, what happened is they attained heavenly planets. So with faith came the sacrifices, the action to do those sacrifices. And those sacrifices gave them the karmic reaction or the karmic result of going to the heavenly planets. While in the heavenly planets, they became the enjoyers of the moon. So as they enjoyed the moon, you can see here, these are the heavenly planets, and where there is no disease and there is no old age. This is the uniqueness of heaven. Everybody is young, people can fly, and they can pretty much do all the activities that the Parabrahman can do. So as they become the enjoyers of the moon, that leads them to the clouds. And the clouds here, you can see on the right side, the clouds then manifest as rain. So from the cloud, through the rain, they fall. Fall how? Onto the earth. This is how physically we come down from the spiritual world. We first come to the heavenly planets. From the heavenly planets, we become enjoyers of the moon. That manifests into the cloud. The cloud manifests as rain, and the rain falls on the earth. When the rain falls on the earth, the grain grows from that, because all the ingredients are already provided in mud, in earth. All that is needed is water. So when the grain is watered, that grain is eaten by man. Here you can see that this is a tree. The man gets the grain, he cooks it and he eats it. And when that grain is eaten by man, his body produces semen. That's how semen is produced, because you need nutrition for the body to make. You know how many gallons of blood is required to create 1 drop of semen? Many, many gallons of blood is required. And to produce those many gallons of blood, you require a lot of nutrition. You need a lot of grains. And that semen, when it enters a woman, a child is born. This is how these actions result in a material human body. These are the sacrifices that it all starts from this sacrifice that you can see the Rishi Muni is doing here. Panchagni Vidya. So, impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of a jiva in the material world. And to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, 5.7 of the Bhagavad Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but Achyuta, Krishna, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that Parabrahman assumes the form of a jiva to come down is rubbish. It cannot be acceptable. It's important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman is distinguished from Parabrahman. Mayavadis say Brahman is the same as Brahman can be used for the mother nature and for the jiva, both. But the Krishna conscious person avoids these kind of sacrifices. Although in this picture, you can see this appears to be a very pious work of doing yagya. but it's not pious in the eyes of a Krishna conscious person. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Any questions? No. If no, we will proceed.
I didn't understand it much, Mataji.
Oh, acha. What part?
I'm confused.
Which part?
I'm confused from. I didn't understand the slide. Though this the left part is clear, I can understand this linkage to different 5 kinds of offerings and the sacrificial altar. But I don't know. I didn't get this, the process. I mean, the cloud and rain in the form of different souls, right? And thereafter, I could not understand.
So, sare souls gire.
Hmm.
They fell as rain onto earth and they grew as grain. That grain is eaten by jivas.
Okay.
And that the nutrition from that grain produces semen in their body.
Okay.
And that semen is also a jiva only.
Mm-hmm.
A semen only has life. A woman's egg does not have life. So only men actually can give birth to human beings, not women. Women are just the containers where they, such an important fact, it never occurred to me, at least for me. So they eat the grain, they produce the semen, and then when they transmit the semen into the womb of a woman, a jiva is born. So kahan se shuru hua jiva, kahan paida ho gaya aake?
Yeah. So that is it something like it is well known to all of us that even plants and plants and trees have life in them? Is that this life which they get from the pouring rain?
Yes.
Okay.
But the focus is not on the kinds of life. The focus is that if you do sacrifices to attain heavenly planets, that means to enjoy. If your mentality is that to enjoy, not serve, then this is what happens.
Okay, you enjoy that heavenly planet, and once your good deeds are over, you then again get poured like rains on earth.
You're literally thrown.
So,
You're literally pushed out, kicked out.
Now I can understand.
Boom, bhago, out. Matlab, rudely. Booking is over. Next person ke liye room allot ho gaya hai. Get out. So, in this process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets. Kafi sacrifices karni padti hai, kafi yajna karne padte hain. Consequently, he reaches heaven. But when the merit is exhausted, he descends in the form of rain. That's why they say fall, the rain falls. ऐसे बोलते हैं? The rain appears, नहीं बोलते. The rain falls. And from that rain, it takes the form of grains. Grains are eaten by man. That turns into semen. That is impregnated into a woman. And this is the real biology. Not the biology that we have learned. That's primitive. That's very primitive. This is advanced biology, isn't it? क्योंकि इसमें पहले क्या हुआ, क्या हो सकता है, बाद में क्या हो सकता है, वो भी बता रहे हैं. हमारे साइंटिस्ट तो सिर्फ उसी मोमेंट का बता सकते हैं, न पहले का न बाद का. So the Krishna conscious person avoids such sacrifices. He directly takes to. This is what the Chandogya Upanishad is saying, that there are 5 kinds of offerings that are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived as heavens, clouds, earth, man, and woman. And the 5 kinds of grains are faith, sabse pehla. It's a grain. Faith, moon, enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. Clear? So you cannot say that Brahman is the same as Parabrahman. Brahman की गति देखो क्या हो रही है. Parabrahman के साथ ये नहीं हो सकता कभी भी. So those impersonalists who say that आत्मा ही परमात्मा है, आत्मा का हालत तो देखो क्या हो रही है. परमात्मा की तो नहीं हो रही. So they are separate. You can't say they are same. Here he refutes very strongly. Okay, next verse. Adi bhutam ksharo bhavaha. Who's left? Vinita.
Adi bhutam sharobhava
Purushas-chadi daivatam.
purushaschavi devatam
Adhiyagno ham evatra.
adhiyagno aham evatra
Dehe deha bhritambara.
dehe dehe bhritambhara. O best of embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adi Deva. And I and Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adi Yagna, the Lord of sacrifice.
So Krishna is saying, I am Adi Yagya. So did you see the, let me show you the screen again. These were the questions, right? Yeah. Who is Adi Yagya? 6th and 7th question. The Lord of sacrifices. Who is Adi Yagya? Is it the Devi Devtas, the sun, the moon? But Krishna is saying, I am the Adi Yagya, the Lord of all sacrifices, not the sun and moon. So the physical nature is constantly changing. Somebody read the purport, I'll just come.
The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adibhuta. It is created at a certain point and will be annihilated at a certain point. The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adi Daivata, and present in the body along with the individual soul is the super soul, a plenary representation of Lord Krishna. The super soul is called the Paramatma or Adi Yagna and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse because by this word, the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. The super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, seated besides the individual soul, is the witness of the individual's soul activities and is the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. The supersoul gives the individual soul an opportunity to act freely and witness his activities. The functions of all these different manifestations of the Supreme Lord automatically become clarified for the pure Krishna conscious devotee engaged in transcendental service to the Lord. The gigantic universal form of the Lord called Adi Daivata is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as Supersoul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form as Virat Purusha, whose legs are considered the lower planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and moon, and whose head is considered the upper planetary system.
The word eva is particularly important in this context, because by this word, the Lord is stressing that Paramatma and he are the same thing. Eva. Eva means only me. Cannot be anybody else other than me. So, physical nature is Adi Bhut, and all the Devi Devtas are Adi Daiva. But Paramatma is Eva, only Krishna. So the super soul gives, which is Krishna, the Paramatma gives the Atma an opportunity to act freely. And he is also witnessing it. Paramatma gives Atma, sanctions him, okay, you can do what you like. I give you permission. So the functions of all these different manifestations of the Lord are automatically become clarified to a pure Krishna conscious devotee who is engaged in bhakti. Only a devotee can understand these different gradations. देवी देवताओं का क्या पोजीशन है, उसकी अपनी क्या पोजीशन है, परमात्मा की क्या पोजीशन है. All the others have confused it into one soup. Okay. And also the Adi Daivat, which is the Virat Roop of the Lord, is contemplated by a neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as the Super Soul. Such a neophyte is advised to contemplate the Virat Purush, whose legs are considered the lower planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and moon, and whose head is considered the upper planetary system. So he who is not able to understand that God is a person, उनका कोई personal form है, उनके लिए ये understanding दी जाती है कि ठीक है आप दुनिया में तो विश्वास रखते हो, you at least consider Mother Nature to be superior to you. Then when you look at Mother Nature, you can look at it as the form of the Lord. Sun and moon are the two eyes of the Lord. Heavens are the head of the Lord. Patal Lok is the feet of the Lord. And you on planet Earth is the middle portion of the Lord. You can conceive of him in this way. Men of small intelligence, if you want to understand who the Virat Purush is. Because he is a Purush. But when something expands or is too big, you're not able to understand the shape. For example, zoom, supposing our face, if I zoom it out completely, you won't be able to make out whether it's a cheek or a nose or an ear or what, if it becomes too big, isn't it? So that's when Mother Nature is so gigantic and so big, it is sometimes difficult for us to visualize that, is this really Krishna? How is this Krishna? Okay. Any questions? We'll move to the last verse for today. Antakale cha mameva. Meena.
Antakale cha mameva.
Smaran mukta kalevaram.
Smaran muktava kalevaram.
Yah prayati samadbhavam.
Ya pariyati samatbhavam.
Yati nati atra samshayah.
Nati nasti atra sanshaya.
Yeah. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Nasti samshaya. No samshaya, no doubt. He's declaring boldly. Who is saying this? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Padha na humne? Who is saying? Where is the confusion now? In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness. What is Krishna consciousness? What do they mean? Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness?
Remembering God, Krishna.
Yes, but what consciousness is that?
कृष्ण नाम का जाप करते हुए, if a person leaves the body, I think this is referring to that.
So ये तो आप एक्टिविटी बता रहे हो कि वो
Making
जाप कर रहे हैं,
Krishna
याद
as
कर
the
रहे हैं.
center of your all activities.
Sorry?
Making Krishna as the center of all your activities, doing everything what you're doing in this material world for Krishna, offering yourself and doing devotional service, that is Krishna consciousness.
हाँ, ये सारी एक्टिविटीज के पीछे भाव क्या है?
To be the servant of the Lord.
Serving Krishna.
And why are we serving Krishna?
Because we love Krishna.
And why do we love Krishna?
Because he is super soul, he is Paramatma.
He is super soul, he is Paramatma.
Serve forever. To serve him. To serve him forever.
क्यों? क्यों कर रहे हैं हम ये सब?
For our internal
करने
eternal
के लिए.
happiness and to get relief from the cycle of birth and death.
उसे हमेशा के लिए सर्व करना है, इसीलिए ये सब करना है.
वो लोग कौन
तभी
जाते हैं?
यहाँ से जा पाएंगे ना.
ये क्यों जाना? उधर क्यों जाना है?
क्योंकि यहाँ पे हम फिर बार बार करते रहेंगे, आएंगे, बच्चे पैदा करेंगे, रोएंगे, धोएंगे, परेशान होएंगे, जॉब में आएंगे, आज के बारे में रोना धोना करेंगे. तो भैया उधर जाए, ऊपर ये सब खत्म करें, सोप ओपेरा.
तो आप क्रक्स में ये कह रहे हो दुख है यहाँ, दुख से छुटकारा पाने के लिए मुझे
दुखा ले आइए.
खा लिया, लेकिन मैं ये पूछ रही हूँ वहां क्यों जाना है?
क्योंकि वो ही हमारा घर है ना, अपने घर तो वापस जाना ही है हमें.
Okay,
We are part and parcel of God, so we have to
Permanent.
again visit there.
What the answer that I'm trying to arrive at is why
Krishna.
Krishna, 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 Krishna? Because we firmly are convinced and believe He is the only one. Vasudevam Sarvamiti, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. वो ही है, उसके अलावा और कुछ है ही नहीं. He is the one. इसीलिए तो कर रहे हैं ना ये सब. So in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. किस कॉन्शियसनेस से हम नाम जपते हैं उसका? क्यों उसका नाम जप रहे हैं? कि तू ही है, अल्टीमेट गोल तू ही है, सब कुछ तू ही है, तुझी से सब कुछ आ रहा है, तुझी में सब कुछ जा रहा है. There is nothing but you. You are the supreme, top most. There is no other place to go. जो इस मेंटालिटी का और इस फेथ का है, such a person when he quits the body, ये बात हो रही है. Many people take the names of Vasudev, this, that, पर उनकी उस समय कॉन्शियसनेस क्या होगी? Not कि he is the supreme. You are also one of the gods, मुझे बचा ले, so that I am saved and I continue my joy here and I continue my enjoyment here. नाम तो आप कोई अनजाने में भी कृष्ण का नाम ले सकता है, because it is so nicely woven into our Vedic way of life, into our Sanatan Dharma, कि हम भगवान का नाम तो आते जाते लेते ही रहते हैं. सभी ना भगवानों के नाम लेते हैं. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है कि अगर कोई देवी देवता का पूजक भी मरते मरते हे केशव, हे मुरारी, हे मदन, हे गोपाल बोल ले. बट उसकी कॉन्शियसनेस क्या है, उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करेगा उसका रिजल्ट, नॉट उसने क्या बोला. Getting my point, that was my question. That the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed here. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the nature of Krishna. जो इस सरेंडर और इस भाव के साथ है कि you are the only supreme personality of Godhead, no one else. इस भाव से अगर हम उसका नाम ले रहे हैं और उसके पास जा रहे हैं, ना कि हमें दुखों से छुटकारा चाहिए. दुखों के छुटकारे के लिए हम कई जगहों पे भी जा सकते हैं. This is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. Smaran, the word smaran is important here, Prabhupada is pointing. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for impure souls who have not practiced Krishna consciousness in their lifetime. पढ़ के लगता है अरे so easy, so let's just enjoy, make merry. मरने के टाइम में नाम ले लेंगे. It won't come. It won't come unless you have practiced. It's not easy. It will not happen. People make big plans. Oh, we have read in the Shastra, Vrindavan mein pran chodo to you will never come back. They make so many plans to go and die in Vrindavan. They don't. They don't. Last minute something happens. They are brought to the city and they die. Yes, they are.
माता जी, हम जैसे हम नाम लेंगे तो हम चले जाएंगे, बट जैसे अगर मान लो कि भैया मैं बिल्कुल ही मैं ऐसी हालत में हूँ कि मैं नाम ले ही नहीं पा रही और मेरे पास चांटिंग मशीन चला रखी है, फिर उसका
यू आर लिसनिंग टू इट. आप नाम यहाँ से भी ले सकते हो, यहाँ से भी ले सकते हो, यहाँ से भी ले सकते हो. Therefore, when devotees are preparing a devotee who is leaving his life, what do the devotees do? They are dancing in front of him. They put pictures of the Lord in front of him. They are loudly singing kirtan कि किसी भी गेट से वासुदेव का स्मरण हो जाए, या बोल सके, या उन्हें देख ले, या उनको सुन ले.
Thank you.
And he who has practiced bhakti yoga sincerely during his lifetime, Krishna promises that if you can't say, I will come and remind you. I will personally come and remind you to take my name. He's so merciful. So remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul. Don't take it very cheaply. It's not easy. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. Consider this like we are preparing ourselves for the Olympics. Material Olympic 4 साल के बाद आती है. This Olympic comes after 70, 80 years. You have sufficient time. You have sufficient time to prepare for your Olympics, your Olympiad. But ultimately, practice only will make you perform there. Otherwise, you will puss. You will not pass. You will fail. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly and incessantly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree. Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these obstructions which come through people, through circumstances, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. Okay? Any questions? We did verse 5. Lord Krishna answers Arjun's questions. 3 questions. What is Adi Bhut, Adi Daiv, and Adi Yajya? Adi Bhut means this physical nature, which is always changing. And it has 6 stages: birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, dwindling, and death. So he says Adi Bhut means this material world. Adi Daivat means the universal form of the Lord. You can imagine it like the sun and moon are his eyes, the upper planetary systems are the head, and the lower hellish planets are the legs. And finally, who is Adi Yajna? It gives the individual soul independence, free independence, and the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. Adi Yagya is Krishna himself. And the stress is on the word eva. Paramatma is non-different from Krishna. Only he is Paramatma, nobody else. Okay. So in answering Arjun's eighth question, Krishna says that whoever quits the body, remembering him, obtains him. In fact, one attains whatever he remembers at the time of death. Krishna therefore recommends that Arjun should undeviatingly meditate on him, dedicate his activities to him, and thus attain him. Like Bhishma Pitamaha. So, Krishna consciousness means purest of the pure. So, it's not possible for an impure soul to remember Krishna at the time of death. It will not come. Krishna runs away from unclean places. So you purify. What is the solution then? Purify yourself in this lifetime that has been given to you by constantly practicing japa, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And how do you do it? By purity, living in Sattva Gun, and by serving. A life that is dedicated in service to Krishna, and thus always thinking of Krishna. So purity and service is required to be effective at the time of death. And along with that, keep practicing Hare Krishna Mahamantra, chant constantly, and tolerate all the impediments that come. Do not give up chanting whenever obstructions or inconveniences come. And you will definitely attain him at the end of life. Okay? Anybody wants to share anything about class today? So about only 23 verses are left. We're going to finish chapter 8 very quickly. All right. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai. Guru Maharaj ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. See you. You can stop the recording.